So Israel has vowed to go ahead with this operation in Rafah, despite international concerns. The government there saying that this is now going to take place in phases rather than an all-out assault. Can I get your reaction to that first?
First, it doesn't surprise me that they are going to go into Rafah. Their declared goal is to destroy Hamas. Unless they go into Rafah, they can't do that, right? Either wholly or impartially. Moving in phases is a very normal military operation. I would be very surprised if they did the opposite and just rushed in bald-headed, right? So I think this is unfolding as can be expected.
What's most interesting to me, though, is the American pushback. The Americans have said that Israel does not have a green light to go ahead with this operation. Where does the relationship stand, and is going in phases enough to appease the Biden administration here?
I don't think so. I think what the Americans think is obviously always going to be of a serious consideration to the Israelis. Now, going in phases in a military operation is quite normal. So I wouldn't link the two things together. I'm not sure they're not linked. I'm not sure they're linked either, right? The Americans have made it clear many times, several times, that there is a limit to their patience. But that limit keeps being pushed. And I think the Israelis are rather skillful at knowing where the line is and not crossing it too far, while pushing the line a bit. I think actually Iran did them a favor with that massive barrage of missiles, drones, and ballistic missiles 2 weekends ago, right? Because that somehow, to some degree at least, turned opinion, which was totally pro-Israel, particularly in the West, to a much more balanced view, particularly when Israel was fairly successful in fending off that massive attack. So I think we're going to see more of this, you know. American warning, Israeli heeding it to some point, and then moving forward again, more warnings, and goes back and forth.
To what extent has the direct confrontation that we saw between Iran and Israel last week changed the calculus in the Middle East?
I think it has, though perhaps not so much in the way that Iran might have hoped. Don't forget, this was a really massive barrage. More than 300 drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. Almost none went through, right? And the damage was minimal. And even reports that some of the ballistic missiles failed on launch. That's quite a triumph for Israel and its allies. And I emphasize its allies because it couldn't have done that alone. It worked with the US, of course, it worked with the UK, but more significantly, I think, it worked with Jordan. And there are press reports, at least Saudi Arabia was there too, although they not wish to be named. Now, that's quite a coalition. If I was Iran, I would be taking note of a few things. One, why did my best weapons not work so well, right? B, oh my gosh, there's this coalition against me. What conclusions would I draw? They're not going to give up their hostility to Israel, that's for sure, right? They are determined to destroy Israel. They've said so many times. But if I was Iranian, I would probably place much more emphasis now on my regional allies. That's my first line of defense. They're much closer to Israel. Hezbollah and the other groups, they think. But more fundamentally, I think, I would probably be reinforcing my determination to push forward with my nuclear program. Because my conventional weapons obviously aren't so great.
And that's why we are seeing the US and the Europeans trying to push back with new sanctions on Iran. But also wanted to ask you about a separate topic here that I think is really important, that ultimately reflects the mood in the United States right now. And it's the protests that we're seeing at college campuses. What's your read on how this has unfolded and how the situation also appears to be spreading and escalating now?
Look, you know, I'm almost 70 years old. So I've watched this on college campuses before. I can understand these people, the students are very upset. I can understand their empathy for the civilians who are dying. But I sometimes wonder when they chant, you know, from the river to the sea, do they know what it means? It means the extinction of Israel. Do they really want that? Probably not. Probably not. No? So it's a phenomenon that we have to take into account. I'm not sure it is a larger phenomenon than, let's say, the Vietnam War protests. That was much larger, right? And much more deadly, by the way. People were dying. I think this is also going to have a political impact. I think, as you know better than me, foreign policy generally does not play a big role in American presidential elections. But I wonder whether this may not be the exception, because the margins are going to be razor thin, and a lot of Biden's support comes from young people and progressives who are not very, obviously, as you can see on campuses, not happy with the position his administration has taken on Gaza.
So on that topic then, how does the president respond to this?
Well, I'm not the president of the United States, you know. I don't know how he's going to respond to this. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. And that's not unusual in the Middle East. The Middle East is a land of bad options and worse options. I don't think he's inclined to abandon Israel. He can't do that, because there'll be another constituency that will get even more upset with him. But on the other hand, he has to show that he is not indifferent to what's going on the ground in Gaza. I think we'll know how good or how bad a job he's doing come November.